Okay, but we're on. Okay, got it. Thank you. We're on.
Good evening and welcome to the Transportation and Parking Commission. My name is Yazdan Emrani. I'm the Director of Public Works, and we are starting this commission at 6:02 p.m. Due to the evolving situation with the COVID-19 coronavirus and health recommendations from the LA County Health Department, the Glendale Transportation and Parking Commission meeting will be available to the public electronically. Due to social distancing requirements, the public will not be able to attend the meeting. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of their homes to practice social distancing. The meeting can be viewed on local cable, Charter Cable Channel 6, and AT&T Uverse Channel 99. And we are also streaming online. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting these questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person during the Glendale Transportation and Parking Commission meeting. So at this time, let's do a roll call.
Item 1A, roll call. Commissioner Yakubian?
Here.
Commissioner Sahakian? Commissioner Nazarian?
Here.
Commissioner Agrasin? Commissioner Agrasin? Can you hear us, Commissioner?
Are you calling me?
Ashul Agrasin?
Yeah, present.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, here.
Okay. Commissioner Lester?
Yeah.
Okay, at this time, would you please join me in the flag salute? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
United States of America
the Republic
and the Republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next.
Item 1C, appointment of chairperson for the Transportation and Parking Commission. The floor is open for discussion.
So at this time, any commissioners can make a nomination, either self-nomination or someone else on the commission.
I would like to nominate Commissioner Agrasin for this position. Thank you, Barbara. Welcome.
Are there any other nominations? All right. If not, let's do a roll call.
Commissioner Yakubian?
Yes.
Commissioner Sahakian? Commissioner Nazarian?
Yes.
Commissioner Agrasin?
Yes.
Commissioner Lester?
Yes.
Right. Congratulations, Commissioner Agracian, for your appointment to the chair. And at this point, I will turn over the meeting to you to continue. We do have one item that if you and the other commissioners are okay with, would like to add is introduction of our new sustainability officer, David Jones. And he can come up and say a few words if that's okay.
Please do.
Can you hear me? Good afternoon, Chairperson and Commissioners. Yes, I'm the new Sustainability Officer, so day 2 on the job. So getting my feet wet and looking forward to the opportunity to working with you and your commission in the future. as we maybe look at sustainable transportation strategies and how that can help Glendale reach its sustainability goals, improve air quality, and add transportation to those in the communities who need it. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to the challenge and the opportunity.
Great. Great. Thank you. So would you like me to take over? Yes?
Yes, please.
So the first agenda is the approval of the minutes. So can we get a motion to approve the minutes from?
Sorry, you're actually just a little bit ahead. Prior to that is the posting of the agenda.
Oh, the posting of the agenda. Sorry. So can we have an agenda posted?
I guess I'll read out the item.
Okay.
Item 2 is the posting of the agenda. The agenda for the Monday, August 24, 2020 regular meeting of the Glendale Transportation and Parking Commission was posted by Thursday, August 20, 2020 before 5 p.m. on the bulletin board outside of City Hall.
Great. And so now we move on to approval of minutes.
Item
Can I
3.
get a motion?
My apologies.
I'm sorry?
My apologies. Continue.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the meeting?
I'll second that.
Great, thank you. Motion passes. So the next item, our action items are, the first item is
One quick.
oh, did I miss something?
Yeah,
Oh, what did I miss?
the roll call.
Oh, we did the roll call, right? No, we didn't do the roll
We'll
call.
do the roll call one more time.
Okay, do it again. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Commissioner Yakubian,
Yes.
Commissioner Sahakian, Commissioner Nazarian,
Yes.
Chairperson Agrassian,
Yes?
Commissioner Lester.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so we're back to item 4, correct?
Yes.
Yep, okay. So the first action item is the proposed preferential parking for the West Harvard Street between 571 West Harvard Street and 633 West Harvard Street. They're proposing to have a 2-hour parking limit between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, except by permit. Are there any comments for anyone?
Mr. Chair, we have a short presentation that our
Okay.
principal traffic engineer is prepared to do. So if you want,
Let's do it.
we can do that.
Yep, let's do it.
Oh, I'm sorry. The first item is our parking manager, Tad Dombrowski.
Okay, terrific.
Good evening, Commissioners, Chairperson. My name is Tad Dombrowski, Parking Manager for the city. The item before you tonight is a proposed preferential parking section on West Harvard near the near San Fernando and the Home Depot. Do you have the slides?
Oh, yes, sorry.
There are approximately 12 spaces that are in question on the street during this section. Typically, we would require the entire block to be part of the petition process. However, in this case, the section that's in yellow on the map is the only section that's being requested, primarily because east of 571, there isn't as much of a traffic and parking concern. This is really based on the large trucks that are in the area, a lot of them independent contractors who are coming to Home Depot for work. So there's just a section of these residential homes that's severely impacted and can't find parking in front of their homes. Of the 29 residential units that are in that section, 22 of them signed the petition, which was enough to meet the qualifications. This is very common for preferential parking when you have a residential neighborhood near the businesses, and preferential parking is the primary tool to keep those businesses back away from the neighborhoods. So that really concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
So I have a question for you. Don't these residential properties have their own parking as well, as they're required to?
Yes, most of the residences in question do have some on-site parking. Because there's 29 units in that small section, it's really, and there's only 12 parking spaces. There's really not enough, even if they did have most of their parking. So, and for guests and other people coming by, the residents are severely impacted on their own without any outside forces.
I see, okay. And just another question. Signage that says trucks or whatever, that's not normal, right? We don't do that in Glendale. Like that says, no trucks allowed or, for parking.
We typically don't. We have two regulations for trucks themselves. One is for oversized vehicles. The other one is, I can't remember the exact regulation. One is 2 hours and one has a 5-hour limit. The contractors that are in the area that own the trucks are very familiar with our parking enforcement folks and can typically move them and jockey them to another street in that time frame. One thing I forgot to add, there were 2 residents who did call in to express their support for this, one at 629 West Harvard and the other at 625. The first one was primarily at 629 was due to the large number of trucks parking in front of their house. The second one actually added not just the trucks, but that the employees who own these trucks a lot of times leave their personal vehicles there. So there's always one vehicle there and they're occupying the space 100% of the time, and then they come and go in the morning and then take the truck out. So I think that adds to the impact in this area.
Mr. Chair, we have a couple of resident statements that we would like to read for you.
Please, go ahead.
Yeah, those were the 2 statements. We actually didn't get it in writing. They were both phone calls that called in, but Ms. Della Cruz at 629 West Harvard in support, and Mr. I apologize in advance for the butchering, Jukaban at 625 West Harvard.
Got it. I suspect they probably also have an issue with noise as a result of these trucks.
They did not make a comment about noise, but I'm sure throughout the day they're generally busy, and they are near a major commercial area.
Correct. Okay. Any other comments or statements?
I don't believe we have any calls for this item.
We have 2 lines here?
Oh, line 2, sorry. I stand corrected.
We have 2 calls.
Both lines?
Just line 2.
Just line 2. Okay, we have 1 call, Mr. Chair. If you would like me to take that?
Great. Please do.
All right. Good evening. You're live on the Transportation and Parking Commission.
Hi, I am the resident that lives at 633 West Harvard Street.
Yeah, go ahead.
Great.
I was listening to the conversation. We honestly don't have any parking, even for 2 cars. It's very hard to find parking at all. Like, they park up and down the street, even including in front of all of our houses. So we never have parking for ourselves, especially for guests even. But we're like, when we get out of work, we're tired already, and there's never parking for us.
So does that happen just during the daytime, or that happens later in the evening as well?
It's all day. They don't move. They're from morning till the next morning. They never move. If they move, they bring another truck.
I see. Okay.
I even spoke to them about it, saying at least, give us parking at night, and that nothing ever helped.
Okay, I understand. Any other additional comments?
No, sorry, I'm just nervous.
Okay.
Don't
All
be.
right.
But pretty much that's it. As females, it's really scary for us when we can't find parking, especially on our own street. And in the middle of the night, we have to park different streets and then walk down. It's very scary for us too, as females.
Yeah, totally get it. Totally understand when that has to happen for any one of us, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Commissioners, do we have any comments from any commissioners?
I'd like to jump in and say, yes, I'm sure as many of us have frequented a Home Depot, I'm very familiar with exactly the situation and the problem there. And I do know, we all know, but I've seen those trucks, business trucks, just parked there. And I guess I'd love to know, a lot of those trucks are advertising. They've got their business, whatever, hauling or demo work. And I don't know what the regulations are with that. Are they allowed to sit and park and advertise? I know we have that issue that comes up sometimes in Glendale. I know they can only stay for a certain amount of time, but I personally have always, I've had a problem with this. I'm taking a little side detour. Trucks, like vans, we know some in particular who park in very convenient locations. They take up resident parking and they advertise and use up our valuable parking space in Glendale, our street parking. And I've always been an advocate, and I'm hoping at some point when we have the ability within the city to really look into what stringent we can be putting on these cars and trucks that just situate themselves for hours and some even days at a time, just sitting there using our space on our dime to advertise and make money. So side issue, but I'm definitely for this.
Great. Anyone else?
I just have some clarification. I'd like to have some clarification, I guess. Once we do this, if we approve this resolution, so those trucks can still park there for 2 hours, I guess, not longer than that? Is that correct?
I think that's what the resolution is for, right?
Yes, Commissioners. The 2-hour regulation would apply to everyone, and generally speaking, from the feedback we've gotten, if you can move these vehicles along, they'll typically find some other way of doing business or some other place to park. They won't continue to keep getting parking tickets over and over again. So really having that regulation in place where the residents are allowed to park longer than that with a permit, but the trucks and the other users there wouldn't be able to park longer than the 2 hours would encourage them to find parking elsewhere.
After we enforce the resolution, obviously with enforcement and ticketing, hopefully that'll work for the residents, correct? Because at the beginning, they may try to continue doing that. So, okay. I also, with Commissioner Morrow, also I'm very familiar with the area. I go to Home Depot almost every weekend, and I've seen those trucks all the time there. So if I was living there, I would have the same problem there. By the way, if I'm not looking at you at my camera, because I triple screen here, so I'm still looking at you, but you don't see me directly at you. So I'm for it. I think this is fair for the residents. The only other question I have is that 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. flexible, or that's pretty standard whenever we do this resolution? I can't remember if that 12 hours is typical.
It is a little longer than what we typically do. And the reason for that is in the morning, we want to start the regulation early enough to where we can go out and start marking for parking enforcement. They would start marking it at 7 a.m., but they wouldn't actually be able to issue tickets until after 9 a.m. And then same thing in the evening, the residents may get home at 5 or 6. They could stay there past the regulation, but we want to be able to extend it into the evening to where if there's still people coming after work and violating, that we can still encourage them not to.
So let me ask you a follow-up question then. So if I have one of those trucks and I park it there 5:30 p.m., I won't get a ticket that night, and I won't get ticket till 9 a.m. next morning. So still the resident who comes home after 5:30 will have the exact same problem, but not during the day. And I'm not saying something wrong with that. I'm just trying to clarify here. So that's the case, right? They can park 5:30 p.m. and be clear till 9 a.m. next day without getting tickets.
That is correct.
So I just want to suggest one thing. This is where a lot of other places do, is that the residents can park, they can park as long as they want with a permit on their window, and anybody else can park for 2 hours during the time allotted, and after that they can't park at night. And something like that would eliminate that issue that Henrik just brought up. I don't know if that's something that the city has done before or not, but a lot of cities have that. So it's parking by permit, but it's available to the residents whenever they want. They just have to show the permit. Their visitors can hang the permit, but public people, like the trucks, they can only park between 7 and 7, but maximum 2 hours.
Well, that's what this ordinance is, but I think there's still some holes in that.
No, I think it's because you said they could park at 5:30 and not have to get a ticket till the next day. What I'm saying is, I'm not sure, but if they don't have the permit hanging at 7:15 p.m., then they're not parked legally. Is that correct?
So it is not required after hours to have a permit, and typically we haven't done this in the past because residents who would leave during those hours and not be home and be out at work wouldn't have to buy a permit. So it's typically lenient to where not all the residents have to purchase a permit, only the residents that would be there during the time the restriction is. And as I pointed out before, if the resident's getting home at 5 o'clock, they still wouldn't need to have a permit because after 7, they could park as late as they want.
So in most places that I'm familiar with, each resident who lives there gets 2 permits at no charge for them or their guests. So it's not a question of, they can park whenever they want. They can show their permit. There's no ticketing. So what that does is nobody else who's not really from that can park at night for 12 hours. This is exactly what Henrik was saying. I do have that fear, They just show up at 7 p.m. after they've done whatever job, park the truck there, and then they go off in their little car that they parked in the Home Depot parking lot, and now there's a truck there for 12 hours, and they still don't have parking.
Well, there was one area on the slide, could I get the map back? That I wanted to point out that is in front of the commercial. It's an area that's actually in orange. We didn't have it on the map that was included as part of the packet and with the exhibit, but I added it specifically for the other one. Second one, please. This one.
Yep.
So
that one.
Yes, on this one, the orange section has no parking regulation. So because of that, it's in front of all the businesses, and then even further out on San Fernando, there's no restriction. The hope is that if the restriction is the difference and anyone who's driving the truck can find a space where there's no restriction, that they'd be encouraged to park there. If it's still full and let's say hypothetically that the 2-hour parking didn't work, then if we know that within the next year, I believe, we have the authority administratively to restrict that down further. So maybe the 2-hour parking becomes 1-hour parking, rather than having to go back through this process again. And the petitioner and everybody else, we can just do it based on the surveys and the petitioner's request to come in. So it's really more about trying to push away the trucks into a different area and not, the challenge with over-restricting it is then you have other residents on the street who may not be allowed to get permits and park there after hours. So now the residents themselves, that would be when we would petition and have the entire street petition for permits so that everyone would be able to get permits on that street.
So, I mean, my real question is, it's the after hours is what, was brought up. It's like during the day, fine, you're limiting it to 2 hours, but the caller had stated, like they come at night and they don't have the parking. So it sounds like to me that after hours, they still have a parking issue.
if I may jump in here, that might be yes or no, because these trucks now are used to put up their car there all day long. If they don't have that luxury anymore, I don't know if they'll show up the hypothetical situation I brought up. I mean, they need to show up there 5:30 afternoon to put their car there and grab it. I don't know
No, I get it.
happen. I was just bringing up to clarify myself, because we did a couple of this last year, and I couldn't remember if it was 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's the part I was trying to understand. Mark, do you remember? Was it 7 to 7? We did 2 of them last year. One on Colorado. Yeah.
I can't recall, but you brought up a really good point, Henry. Here's the thing, though. Those types of services, those trucks that are parked right outside the exit of Home Depot, that exit driveway, they probably get their best jobs first thing in the morning. So not first, like 6:30, 6, 7, whenever Home Depot is open, that's when the best fish is to catch, so to speak. So that is an interesting observation you made, Henrik. I think that's something, and I leave it to staff to observe. Let us know what happens during this year. I'd like to be updated on this. And as you said, there would be the prerogative and the authority to adjust if necessary. So I'm willing to see how this goes for the year.
One last question for you. Is there any fear of these people shifting their parking further down the street and displacing more parking for other residents?
Yes, that typically comes up. And those residents in turn also have the ability then to administratively do this and not have to come back with a separate report each time for a certain number of residents. If it's a secondary impact based on this decision, then they can just petition for an extended area that's impacted, and we can go ahead and extend that regulation down the street.
Great. So any more discussion on this?
I'm good.
Good, okay. So should we have a motion to vote or to pass the resolution? Anyone wants to?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to pass the resolution, yes.
Great. I'll second it. So I think I can do that even. So let's vote on it.
Okay, we're going to do roll call. Commissioner Yakubian?
Yes.
Commissioner Sahakian? Commissioner Nazarian?
Yes.
Chairperson Agrasin?
Yes.
Commissioner Lester?
Yes. So the motion passes. Perfect. So now we are ready to move on to our next item. Just going through the agenda here, which is the report regarding installation of speed humps on Griswold Street between Colorado and Maple. And I think it's related to the next one, which is the same item on Fisher between Colorado and Maple. So I don't know if you want to discuss them separately or just discuss them together as a whole.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I would recommend doing them separately so you can vote on each one separately.
Perfect. Okay. So the speed humps between Colorado and Maple on Griswold Street. Any discussion on that? Anyone?
Again, we have a short presentation that our traffic engineer, Mr. Pastor Casanova, is going to do.
Great.
Just press this. Good evening, Chairperson and members of the Commission. As our Director mentioned, my name is Pastor Casanova, and I'm the Principal Traffic Engineer in Public Works Engineering. Today, we'll be providing 2 separate presentations for the 2 street segments that were mentioned. In the first street segment, being Griswold Street between Colorado Street and Maple Street. Griswold Street is a north-south street that's located approximately 1 block west of Verdugo Road and connects Colorado Street and Maple Street as shown on the map. The traffic calming measures proposed tonight were initiated by the community, and Public Works staff received requests for traffic calming measures on Griswold Street to address vehicle speeding issues in the residential area and the respective safety of the residents. The preferred traffic calming measure that was identified by the community were the implementation of speed humps. The map on the screen shows a blown-up view of Griswold Street, and to get a better view, it's a north-south street again, runs parallel to Verdugo, just west of Verdugo, and connects Colorado and Maple Street. This street segment does meet the description criteria for a residential zone as identified in a neighborhood traffic calming program. This now is an aerial view and Griswold Street is depicted on the screen in a blue box. And as you can see, you see residential units abuts both sides of Griswold Street. This view of the screen is standing approximately mid-block on Griswold and looking northbound. Now, same point, approximately mid-block and looking southbound. So upon receiving the request from the community to look into potential traffic calming measures, staff followed the criteria identified in the city's adopted neighborhood traffic calming program and performed the following analysis. We initiated by conducting a screening evaluation, first and foremost to check the street classification on whether it is a local street, a neighborhood collector, or a community collector. In this case, Griswold is a local street, which does meet the neighborhood traffic calming program criteria, and this is in a residential zone. So upon meeting this initial screening evaluation stage, we then moved on to the engineering study portion, and which included a review of 24-hour speed and traffic volume, traffic counts, field investigation to confirm the roadway characteristics, street widths, signs, striping, and geometry. And we applied all of these elements to the neighborhood traffic calming guidelines for proposed speed humps on Griswold, and findings of the study concluded that all of the criteria were met. Upon meeting all of the criteria, staff prepared a petition package and provided that package to the requesting resident. And that resident then carried the petition package, circulated it amongst the community, and obtained 98 out of the 114 dwellings or residents along Griswold, which represents 86% of support for installation of speed humps. So in summary, our findings and recommendation are that Griswold Street does meet the required criteria stipulated in the neighborhood traffic calming program for installation of speed humps. The community does support it by an amount of 86% support. Therefore, staff does recommend installation of 3 speed humps on Griswold between Colorado Street and Maple Street. Exhibit A shows the approximate locations of the speed humps on Griswold Street, which take into account driveway locations, minimum spacing, as well as spacing to the nearest intersection. And that concludes the presentation, and I'm going to go ahead and go back to the previous slide and leave it on the screen for discussion in case you have questions.
Great. Thank you so much. I have a question for you. I know that we're also going to have the Fisher Street. By doing this with the speed humps, does that mean that we're actually just transferring that traffic onto the subsequent streets, you know, the ones that are after Fisher?
That is an element of installing traffic calming measures that we look at after installation. In this case, it may not be the case because there are land uses near Fisher and Griswold that may be contributing to the issue. So I think the further west we go, that may not be there.
Okay, got it. Great. I mean, I'm okay with it if the residents want that, so.
Yes, and I'd like to add that there were 2 residents that did call in and wanted to mention their support for the speed humps as well. I will not mention their names, but we did get 2 calls in support.
And Mr. Chair, I believe we have one caller on the line, if you'd like to hear from that individual.
Yes, that's great, thank you.
Hello?
Good evening, you're on with the Transportation and Parking Commission.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on Griswold, so I just want to make a couple of comments and ask a couple questions. So by transferring traffic to other streets, keep in mind at the top of the corner of Griswold and Colorado, there's a Starbucks. And the Starbucks has the drive-through, and since that Starbucks was installed, people are speeding down the street coming out of the drive-through. So if they want to go to Starbucks, I mean, you're gonna be dumped on Griswold. So you can either make a left or a right. So that's really not going to be transferring traffic elsewhere. That's just one comment. I was one of the 98 of the 114 residents, and I agree with the gentleman's screening evaluation and engineering study. One of my questions is the spacing of the speed bumps. If you pull up Exhibit A again, you can see that middle speed bump, the distance between that middle speed bump and the southern speed bump is much larger. It's 292 feet versus the other gaps are much less. That's one of my questions. The other gaps are 258 and 236. I'm hoping that we can narrow that gap of 292 and make it even, if that makes sense. The other questions that I have are installation of the speed bumps. What type of timing are for the installation, as well as any challenges or obstacles that you guys would need? Would you have to close down the street, et cetera? What type of challenges would be in place? That's all I have for now. I appreciate the time that you've given me.
Thank you for calling in.
So I'll leave that to staff to answer those questions.
Lester?
Sorry. Yeah, so the 3 questions that I noted down were the speed hump spacing, and as I indicated in the slide, one of the things that we consider are driveway locations. So we will definitely take a closer look at this. These are approximate locations, but although they're approximate, they are based on our field work, and we try to not only meet the spacing criteria, but also not place the speed hump in front of a driveway. Regarding the schedule.
And it doesn't have an impact. It doesn't have an impact, right? I mean, whether they're 10 foot one way or another, the overall calming aspect still occurs. So it's not, the suggested spots are still perfectly okay. Is that right?
I'm not sure I'm understanding. Are you referring to the driveway locations?
What I'm saying is that the way you have it now, it's still going to have the same effect. I mean, by making it equal, it's not going to have any different effect. I mean, the way you have it is going to have the same effect as if you were to start moving them around, is what I'm saying.
Oh, yes, correct. Because the specific spacing isn't necessarily going to be perceived by the driver. The driver is going from basically point A to point B, from the north end to the south end, or vice versa, and they will not notice those small adjustments. Okay, and regarding the schedule, we do not have a schedule at this point. The first thing we do is make sure we coordinate this element with the Transportation and Parking Commission as well as the community. And as soon as we find an outcome, then we will identify a project that will implement it as well as a schedule. And regarding challenges during the construction period, anytime these projects move forward, both the city as well as the contractors will coordinate and advise the residents along the street. So any effects would not be a surprise. All residents would be advised of the construction work. I hope that answers your question.
Great. Thank you very much.
Can I jump in?
Please.
Okay, so may I ask staff, because, you know, I'm always fascinated, and I've been here for so long, and I've, you know, when all of a sudden there's a sudden need for, you know, a sudden request for these kinds of things on these residential streets, the first question I have, has there been some sort of a change, an adjustment to neighboring streets, some construction that has changed the traffic patterns here? So we got the clue about the speaker who called in, the resident, about the Starbucks. And if I'm not mistaken, and maybe staff could tell me, that is located, I guess the exit for that Starbucks feeds you out on Fisher, is that correct?
No, it's actually
No, onto Griswold.
I'm sorry, onto Griswold. So, and I know that's part of the problem that they're, you know, that they're highlighting, right? So my first question is, before jumping into the, you know, and it is money to put these kinds of things. It's not an extraordinary amount, but it is an amount. I would think that, did we approach the business and ask them if they can at least have a restricted turn sign on that as they're exiting, so to divert them back to Colorado, so they're not necessarily going down that residential street?
No, we have not explored that option. Coming out of the Starbucks, it would be restricting a right turn movement, which is oftentimes very, very difficult. And to restrict those types of movements, it's sometimes best to incorporate it, say, into the actual site, the way the driveway is designed. So, yes, we have not explored that option at this location.
So it's coming out on Griswold, but you're saying they're not allowed to, the restriction would not let them turn right? I mean, my point is that we'd want them not to turn left if they're coming out on Griswold.
Oh, sorry.
Correct? Like, we'd want them to turn right.
Yeah, the driveway location for the Starbucks is very close to Colorado Street. I don't have an exact measurement, but I'd say it's approximately 75 feet from Colorado. So that move is okay for them to make the left and go on to Colorado. They don't go through the neighborhood or the community. It's when they make the right
I'm
that
so sorry.
they go south
The other
towards
side
Maple.
of Griswold.
Yeah.
Ah, got it. Okay, I hear you. Okay, that's been cleared up for me. The next question I have is, and I always ask this when you know, residents are given the you know, presented with this opportunity to do it. Are they informed that when they put these humps onto their street, they will be experiencing an increase of noise? So those cars that are coming down the street and they have to slow down to go over those humps, and the sound of that will increase it's increase the noise. There's no doubt. So are they informed of that when, I know you said I think you give some information to the residents as they're going through this petition process, but, you know, things like that are important for them to understand, especially, you know, for those residents whose, you know, the humps are maybe right, you know, almost in front of their houses or near to their houses. That's going to have an effect. So I wanted to know, what does staff do, and that how much are you informing them of that?
Yes, incorporated as part of the petition package, there are instructions to the community member that's pursuing the signatures. And on there, it does mention to coordinate with those community members that are going to be situated right in front of the speed hump location. And in fact, as we review the signatures that were obtained for the petition, The signatures from the dwelling units in front of the proposed speed humps are required. So, and that's because of that very issue that they would be the ones that may experience the most impacts when it comes to noise. But a short answer to your question, Commissioner, is that we do include instructions on the petition package for the resident to discuss that with the affected residents.
The residents are discussing it? My point is do the residents even know? So that's not something to necessarily think about when you have humps that they're trying to add. Their first reaction is, oh great, this is going to slow down traffic. What I'm saying is who's informing them that there are these other issues that may arise with this?
Yeah, so since this is a joint city, staff, and community effort, that function is carried through by the community member. And again, the way that member understands what they're supposed to communicate is we include all that information in the petition package.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate that.
Mr. Chair.
I have a question. Yeah.
If I may, we have 2 callers waiting on, if you want to take those calls.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Good evening. You're on with the Transportation and Parking Commission.
Great.
Hello.
Hello, my name, well, I won't give my name. I've been a long-time resident on Griswold, and I've seen lots of traffic up and down, and they've been racing. It's not only due to Starbucks. There's been 18-wheelers coming down this street, and if it's red at the signal at Verdugo and Colorado, they're turned down and then go on to Maple. It's another way to avoid the signal. I am in very much favor of putting in the humps. As far as the Starbucks, we're going to have traffic either way. You can't just have them turn, right to go on to Colorado, because if you're going east on Colorado, turning down on Griswold, there's already traffic. They're parking in the red there on both sides with Heavenly Garden and Starbucks. So I hope this puts it through.
And as far as the noise isn't that bad.
And the noise isn't that bad. Well, gentlemen, thank you for your time, and I hope it goes through because we need it. We've been fighting this for a long time, and it's way overdue. Have a pleasant evening.
Thank you very much. Good evening. You're on live with Transportation and Parking Commission.
Good evening, Commission. Thank you very much for taking my call. I've been a resident of Griswold Street for 7 years now. I just want to echo everything that's been stated previously. I was not one of the residents that was presented with the petition, so I especially wanted to call in and add my support as I was not one of the signatures included. Starbucks is absolutely a part of the problem, but as the previous caller mentioned, it is not the root of the problem either. I would definitely say that traffic on Griswold has increased significantly since that Starbucks has opened at Griswold in Colorado. But also the busyness of the intersection at Colorado and Verdugo is also a contributing factor because cars just like to avoid that at all costs. They make that right down Griswold to take that to Maple, and they come very, very fast. As far as restricting turns outside of the drive-through, I think that's a nice sentiment, but I don't think that it's something that will work. Drivers in Glendale are notoriously unsafe, and I don't think that expecting drivers to follow a turn sign out of a drive-through is something that would be very effective. And as far as the noise from speed humps, I would just like to say that noise from speed humps would be significantly less interfering than the noise from the engines revving 50 miles per hour down our residential street. That is what is causing the noise. So that's all I wanted to say, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, we have no more calls.
Thank you. Any other comments or thoughts about this?
Just a quick question and then one more comment. If you can put the slide back, please. I saw a 12-feet hump. What does exactly that mean? Is it one side of the street? On the legend on the top left says 12-foot speed hump.
Oh, yes, that indicates the width of the speed hump. So as you're approaching it from that point to the opposite side, it's 12 feet wide.
So it doesn't cover the entire two length of the traffic?
It does. So the width we're talking about is not from curb to curb, but rather the portion that the vehicle drives over.
I'm sorry, being a little bit, I guess, more. So it's more than 6 feet in each direction, right? I mean, I'm still not following that it's 12 feet will cover both sides. I mean, the typical lane is 10, 11 feet at least. So I thought this would be more like a 20 feet if you want to cover both sides, unless the openings in the middle were not counting or something. I'm a little confused, so I just thought I'll ask.
Yeah, just to help clarify, what I call the length of the speed hump goes from the gutter line on one side of the street, which is the beginning of the pavement, to the gutter line on the opposite side of the street. So it will cover both lanes, the entire length, width of the street.
I thought so, and I think that's a lot more than 12 feet. I mean, that's probably 22 feet, if not more. But I think now I'm clear then. Just adding a comment about Starbucks and everything, and I think I can totally understand how is this happening, and I can understand the frustration of residents. And I'm in support of adding this hump, by the way. But just bringing up that the Starbucks, when that was approved and before it was built, all the traffic study and everything was done, and I don't think we can restrict Starbucks for any movements or anything after the fact now. So I think this hump will probably do some benefit to the residents, and I think it may solve a portion of the problem. Still, people may still speed over these humps, but I think it will help a little bit, and I'm in support of that.
Great. Anyone else?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I happen to have lived on this block in the mid-'90s. A very good memory. So yeah, this block has a characteristic of a lot of Glendale blocks where it's rather tall. It's a long street section. There's a lot of room for cars to get up a good head of speed on it, as opposed to having more intersections. So this seems like a good idea. And Marlo's comments are also good to remember. I have a lot of speed bumps near me, and the revving of the engines doesn't go away because often the cars rev between the speed bumps, particularly if they're farther enough apart. But when you're talking about serious speeding, it improves safety and overall discourages through trips that wouldn't otherwise go through. And that's the thing about the Starbucks, is that having those speed bumps there will cause people to make different choices. That's my comment.
Can I jump in? One thing I want to say, because my involvement with pedestrian safety in Glendale goes back over a decade, and it's something I'm very passionate about. And so when we talk about drivers in Glendale, I know that there is, and the caller made the comment about notorious and Glendale drivers. The statistics with, especially with pedestrian collisions, they're majority out of city drivers. So although we like to damn and condemn the Glendale drivers, you assume that they live in our city. A lot of these people who are involved in the more serious accidents are actually coming from out of the city. So we have bad drivers everywhere. It's not just limited to our city. I just want to make that point, and I'm not trying to make anything other than that point, which is it can be spread around all over. But I am in favor of this. I just wanted to make sure that the residents understood that it wasn't necessarily, there are some things you have to take into consideration when these humps get put in. So looks like everyone is on notice, and I'm ready to support it. And I think I can go ahead and make a motion if no one else has anything else to say.
Great. Thank you, Mauro.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and make a motion to move action item 4B, a motion to improve the installation of 3 speed humps on Griswold Street between Colorado Street and Maple Street.
I'll second it.
Oh, good.
All right, roll call. Commissioner Yakubian,
Yes.
Commissioner Sahakian, Commissioner Nazarian,
Yes.
Chairperson Negrasin,
Yes.
Commissioner Lester,
Yes.
Yet the motion passes. So, yes, now we move on to the next one, right?
Yes, we have item 4C, and Pastor has a presentation for that too.
Perfect.
Okay. The second street segment and presentation that we'll be going through today is for Fisher Street. And it's Fisher Street between Colorado Street and Maple. This is a street that's parallel to Griswold, just 1 block to the west, as we briefly mentioned in the previous discussions. And you see it on the screen. Going to the next slide. Oh, there we go. Okay. And once again, this request for traffic calming measures was initiated by the community, by the residents. Public Works staff received requests for traffic calming measures on Fisher to address speeding issues in the residential area and safety of the residents. The preferred traffic calming measures identified by the community stakeholders were implementation of speed humps. On the map is a more blown up map showing Fisher Street just west of Verdugo Road and connecting Colorado Street to the north and Maple Street on the south. This street as well as meets the definition criteria in the neighborhood traffic calming program for a residential zone. On the screen is now an aerial depiction showing the land use in the area and showing that Fisher Street is abutted by residential properties. This is now standing on Fisher Street, approximately mid-block, looking to the north. This next picture shows, again, standing mid-block on Fisher Street, looking southerly. Staff began by initiating and implementing an engineering analysis following the city's adopted neighborhood traffic calming program guidelines. And we began by performing a screening evaluation, which took a look at the street classification for the street. And Fisher Street, in this case, is a local street, which does meet the traffic calming criteria. And it is in a residential zone, which also meets the criteria. We then proceeded and prepared an engineering study, which included an analysis of 24-hour speed and volume traffic counts, field investigation, confirming the roadway characteristics, and we applied that information and data to the neighborhood traffic calming criteria and guidelines for proposed speed humps on Fisher. Findings of the study concluded that all the criteria were met. Staff then prepared and provided a petition package to the requesting resident that initiated the traffic calming study. That resident then circulated the petition to the community and was able to obtain 114 out of the total 139 dwelling units or residents along Fisher Street. That represents 82% of support for speed humps on Fisher Street. Concluding our summary of the findings and recommendations are that Fisher Street does meet all of the criteria stipulated in the Glendale Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program for installation of speed humps. The community support was at 82%, and staff recommends the installation of 3 speed humps on Fisher Street between Colorado Street and Maple Street. Exhibit A on the screen shows the approximate location of the speed humps, which takes into account driveway locations, minimum spacing requirements between the speed humps as well as to the nearest intersection. And that concludes this presentation for Fisher Street. And once again, I'll pan back so we can keep Exhibit A on the screen.
Thank you, Pastor. So, any discussion? We've kind of discussed this whole thing on the other street. I think a lot of that applies. Only in this case, I believe there's a McDonald's as opposed to a Starbucks, which is probably doing the same thing with traffic. Any discussion on it? Anyone? No? Do we have any callers?
No, Mr. Chair, we have no callers.
Okay, so I support it just as I support the Griswold. I mean, I really think it's a good idea to calm traffic, you know. So
can I say something?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I could save it for staff comments, but since it is related to these motions that are coming to our commission, again, and I know if Mr. Sahakian would hear, I mean, I don't want to speak for him, but having been on the commission with him for so long, you know, these questions often come up is the domino effect of starting the humps and moving from street to street. So I guess my question is, we have a big, huge, massive Glendale City College, Community College extension monolith something happening on Garfield, which is just another block over from Maple. And I want to know, you know, what is that somehow, is this commission going to be involved? Has city been looking at the ramifications of this development and the parking and how that's going to affect, you know, the streets? I know, I guess we can leave that for staff comments. Maybe you guys can touch on that afterwards. Let's get to this motion for this issue. But, you know, that's in the back of my mind. I'd like to know what's going on in this area, you know, because there's a lot going on. All of a sudden, it's something that's kind of developing. I'd like to maybe get an update from staff at some point about that.
Great.
So we can do the motion. Sorry about that, guys. I couldn't wait to staff comments.
Anyone wants to make a motion? Nope.
I'll make the motion again. So I'll move for a motion approving the installation of 3 speed humps on Fisher Street between Colorado Street and Maple Street.
Great.
I'll second that.
Great. Okay. Let's vote on it.
All right, roll call. Commissioner Yakubian?
Yes.
Commissioner Sahakian? Commissioner Nazarian? Commissioner Nazarian?
Yes, sorry, I unmuted too quick.
Chairperson Negrasin?
Yes.
Commissioner Lester?
Yes.
Great. Motion passes. Thank you very much, Petra. So I think we now have come to the bottom of our agenda, which the next item is any oral communication. Are there any speakers here?
Mr. Chair, we have no callers.
No callers. Okay. I guess the next item is commission and staff comments updates. Mara, you were just talking about that. Do you want to go through?
I'll defer to staff first for any updates.
Do you have an update? So, Mr. Chair, members of commission, we haven't looked at that particular area in particular. However, we are, as you know, planning to do a citywide traffic study. And as part of that, we will be looking at the different locations within the city, and we would definitely add this as part of our citywide traffic study to provide some additional insight.
So when is study scheduled for?
Well, it was approved by the council during our budget session. However, we're just waiting for, because it requires taking traffic volume counts and speed surveys and all that. We're waiting for the traffic conditions to be a little bit back to normal, because right now it wouldn't reflect the actual conditions during the COVID-19 situation.
So, I mean, I would add back to normal with the COVID situation, and then wouldn't you also want to see what results in that large completion of the extension for that community college? I'm not even sure. Do they have, how much parking do they have? Is that going to somehow spill out onto the streets and nearby neighboring cities? Are we going to have people rushing to get to their class and they're late? And I guess the concern I have is if the city is about to embark on a traffic study and focusing part of it on this area, then it would make sense to perhaps put a hold on processing, further, requests for traffic calming measures until you've completed the traffic study. So how do you plan on doing that as staff? Are you going to, you may not have anything in the pipeline right now, but wouldn't you agree that that would be perhaps the prudent thing to do?
Commissioner Yacoubian, we would certainly look at it. However, depending on, again, as you mentioned, when the traffic study occurs with this current pandemic, we may still look at these different calming measures as they come through, and evaluate them individually, and with an eye towards that traffic study and the potential impact. However, we are hoping actually to start this process within the next few months, again, depending on where the conditions are. But your point is well taken.
May I follow up with that? This is kind of just for my knowledge. Has there been any instances in this past year or maybe before your time where those residents who have requested the humps or bumps or whatever was used in your streets had them reversed?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, we have not had any reversals. I know in the past 5 years that I can attest to since I've been here.
And would that require to go through the commission again, or is that just something that's handled administratively?
No, that would require coming to the commission again.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Just wanted to know.
I have a question regarding the traffic study. So when you're done with it, is the study going to be sort of interfaced with the transit study that's going on with all the changes to see kind of how that might impact with the traffic, or are they just totally separate and not linked in any way?
It's an independent study, so it's not related to the transit. But which transit study, Mr. Chair, are you referring to?
Well, I mean, the Glendale B, as well as the Metroliner, they're all kind of in the process of making changes. So the question is, as you do the traffic study, some of these changes that these various transit boards are planning might have an impact even after we're back to COVID-19, pre-COVID-19 levels. I'm just questioning, are they going to be, is there going to be enough there to look at, or you're not going to look at that because it's too fractured?
We're going to be, and I'm going to ask Pastor to kind of go through and give a quick overview of what's going to be involved in the traffic study.
Okay, so at this point, we don't have a very, very fine-tuned scope of work prepared and defined. But generally, this is going to be the type of traffic study that looks at citywide traffic operations. You know, how are things functioning right now? There's, of course, a lot of elements that have to go into that study, and not only vehicles, but we would want to include pedestrians, bicycles, transit, all the different forms of mobility, and as well as really keeping an eye, although we may look at traffic circulation and we want to make sure traffic is moving, we want to look at those other modes of travel that are also important to us as we move towards building a more sustainable city.
Okay, great. So it is really a overall mobility study. I mean, traffic is a large part of it, but you're going to look at everything that moves people in the city to get an idea of what you're going to do, right?
Yes. Yes, they will all be included in this study.
Great. Any other comments? Any other updates?
I was going to mention at the beginning, actually, I was going to see if you're going to give Mr. Lester a couple of minutes to introduce himself and give us a little bit maybe background or something, see why he joined the commission. What's wrong with you? I mean,
it's a humble attempt at public service. I got involved with walk and bike advocacy around I think starting around 2013, and I was involved with the pedestrian advisory committee during the development of the pedestrian plan with Morrow. I've been a driver, a bike commuter in the area. You know, I returned back here. I was born here but moved away, but returned back in '94, at which point I lived 2 years on Griswold Street and rented it was a spare bedroom of a friend of a friend. It's a great neighborhood, by the way. So I had a chance to, spend a lot of time. I did move to Burbank for a little while, but I spent most of the years in between living in Glendale, and got a sense of, sort of some of the patterns, what it's like to be a cyclist. I have 2 kids, and I like the idea of active transportation becoming a bigger part of mode share in Glendale. So those are my motivations, and I'm just hopeful that I can help out in some small way to make that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. So if there are no other comments or updates, can we move to adjourn?
Motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion passes. We're adjourned. So simple as that, right?
Absolutely.
Great.
7:15 p.m.
Thank you.
Great job, Ashu.
Yeah.